Some secrets don't ruin a wedding when they're revealed. They ruin it when they turn out to be true. The first thing I remember about that morning was the sound of church bells echoing through downtown Boston. Soft, beautiful, certain. The kind of sound that was supposed to calm a nervous bride. It didn't calm me. Standing in front of the mirror inside the bridal suite, I stared at my reflection and tried to ignore the strange feeling sitting in the center of my chest. My white dress fit perfectly. The makeup artist had done an incredible job. My dark blonde hair fell in loose waves over my shoulders exactly the way I had imagined since I was a little girl. Everything looked right. So why did everything feel wrong? Outside the room, guests were arriving. Friends, family, coworkers, people who believed they were about to witness the happiest day of my life. Maybe they were. Maybe I was just overwhelmed. That was what everyone kept telling me. Wedding nerves. Nothing more. I pressed a hand gently against my stomach and looked away from the mirror. The movement had become a habit over the past few weeks. Ever since the doctor had delivered the news that should have filled me with excitement, but instead left me with questions I couldn't answer. Questions nobody seemed able to answer. The door opened behind me. My maid of honor, Emily, stepped inside carrying 2 paper cups of coffee. "You look gorgeous," she said. "Seriously, Claire. Ryan is going to cry." I forced a smile. "You think so?" "I know so." She handed me a cup. "Stop worrying. In 2 hours you'll be married and all this stress will be over." Married. The word should have made me happy. Ryan Bennett was successful, respected, and kind. Everyone loved him. My parents adored him. My friends thought I had won the relationship lottery. Yet every time I imagined walking down the aisle, I felt the same strange hesitation I couldn't explain. As if some invisible part of me was pulling in the opposite direction. I took a sip of coffee and glanced toward the window. Gray clouds drifted across the skyline. A storm was building somewhere beyond the city. "You okay?" Emily asked softly. "Yeah." The lie came. Automatically. "Just emotional." She hugged me and smiled. "Good. Because your future husband looks like he's about to pass out from excitement." I laughed to spite myself. For a moment, the tension eased. For a moment, everything felt normal. Then my phone vibrated on the makeup table. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. Instead, I picked it up and opened the message. My heart stopped. One sentence appeared on the screen. No greeting. No explanation. No signature. Just 6 words. "Don't walk down that aisle, Claire." Everything inside me went cold. Before I could react, a second message arrived. This one was worse. "Ask Ryan about the clinic." My fingers tightened around the phone until the edges dug into my skin. "Ask Ryan about the clinic." I read the sentence 3 times, hoping it would somehow change. It did not. The room suddenly felt smaller. The laughter from the hallway sounded distant. Even the church bells seemed farther away now. Emily tilted her head. "Claire? You look pale." I locked the screen immediately. Just a weird message. From who? I do not know. She frowned but did not push. A knock interrupted us. My father stepped into the bridal suite wearing a navy suit and the proud smile he had been carrying for months. "There is my little girl." His voice nearly broke as he looked at me. "You are ready." I smiled for him. I always smiled for him. But my mind was somewhere else entirely. The clinic. 3 weeks earlier, I had visited a private fertility and women's health center after my doctor recommended additional testing. The pregnancy had been unexpected. Confusing. The specialists had asked strange questions. Taken extra blood samples. Scheduled follow-up appointments that seemed unusually urgent. At the time I assumed it was routine. Now I was not so sure. "Claire." My father offered his arm. "Time to go." The music began outside. Soft piano notes floated through the church walls. Guests settled into their seats. The ceremony was starting. I slipped my phone into my bouquet and followed him into the hallway. Every step felt heavier than the last. The long corridor leading toward the sanctuary glowed beneath warm chandelier light. Bridesmaids lined up ahead of me. Flower arrangements filled the air with the scent of white roses. Everything was beautiful. Perfect. Yet that message continued echoing inside my head. Ask Ryan about the clinic. Why would Ryan know anything about that place? We reached the doors. The wedding coordinator smiled and adjusted my veil. You look stunning. I barely heard her. The music swelled. The doors opened. Hundreds of faces turned toward me. Friends. Family. Loved ones. And at the far end of the aisle stood Ryan. Hands clasped. Smile confident. Waiting. The crowd faded away as I began walking. My heels clicked softly against the polished floor. One step. Then another. Ryan's expression softened when he saw me. For a moment I wondered if I was being ridiculous. Maybe someone was playing a cruel prank. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe everything was fine. Then I noticed it. Ryan looked nervous. Not normal wedding nervous. Something else. His eyes flickered briefly toward the entrance behind me. Just for a second. But I saw it. Fear. The realization sent a chill through me. The officiant began speaking. I barely heard a word. My pulse thundered in my ears. Ryan reached for my hands. Before he could touch them, a deep voice echoed from the back of the church. Stop the ceremony. Every conversation died instantly. The room fell silent. Chairs shifted. Heads turned. My breath caught. A tall man in a black suit stood beneath the open doors. Rain from the gathering storm darkened his shoulders. He was not rushing. He was not angry. He simply walked forward with absolute certainty. The kind that made an entire room move out of his way without being asked. His eyes found mine. Cold. Focused. Unwavering. Then he spoke words that shattered the world I thought I understood. Claire Whitman is carrying my child. The silence that followed felt endless. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Even the pianist had stopped playing. I stood frozen in the middle of the aisle while every eye in the church shifted between me and the stranger walking toward the altar. My pulse hammered so loudly I could barely hear anything else. Ryan released my hands immediately. The color drained from his face. That terrified me more than the accusation itself. If a random man had entered my wedding claiming something impossible, Ryan should have laughed. He should have called security. He should have defended me. Instead, he looked like someone watching a secret come back to life. The stranger stopped several feet away. Up close, he appeared even more imposing. Dark hair. Sharp features. Calm blue eyes that missed nothing. His expression carried none of the arrogance I expected. No triumph. No anger. Just certainty. The kind of certainty that frightened me. Who are you? I finally managed to ask. My voice sounded small inside the enormous church. Adrian Blackwell, he answered. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The name clearly meant something to many of the guests. It meant nothing to me. I do not know you, I said. You are right, Adrian replied. You do not. A strange sadness crossed his face before disappearing. But that child is connected to me. That is impossible. My words came out sharper this time. I have never met you before today. I know. The answer stunned me. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Ryan finally stepped forward. This is enough. His voice sounded strained. You need to leave. Adrian slowly turned his attention toward him. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Do I? He asked quietly. Ryan swallowed hard. You are disrupting a private ceremony. And you are hiding information from Claire. Every muscle in Ryan's jaw tightened. My stomach twisted. The unknown text message flashed through my mind. Ask Ryan about the clinic. Suddenly, I was no longer looking at Adrian. I was looking at my fiancé. What clinic? I asked. Ryan's eyes immediately found mine. Claire, please. Not now. Not now. Those two words hit harder than any denial could have. Because they were not a denial. My heartbeat accelerated. Ryan. He took a step closer. We can discuss this later. Discuss what? I whispered. Around us, guests exchanged nervous glances. My parents looked confused. Emily looked terrified. Nobody understood what was happening. Neither did I. Adrian reached into his jacket and removed a sealed envelope. He handed it to me without force, without urgency. You deserve answers, he said. My hands trembled as I accepted it. Inside were copies of medical documents, test results, laboratory records, appointment logs. My name appeared repeatedly across the pages. So did the name of the clinic. Then I saw another name, Ryan Bennett, listed as an authorized contact. My vision blurred. I looked up slowly. Why would your name be on my medical records? Ryan did not answer immediately. And in that terrible silence, I realized something far worse than Adrian's impossible claim. The man I was about to marry had been keeping secrets from me. The church no longer felt like a place of celebration. It felt like a room full of strangers watching my life come apart one piece at a time. I stared at Ryan, waiting for him to explain the documents in my hands. Waiting for him to tell me there was a mistake. Waiting for anything that would make sense. Instead, he looked away. That was when fear truly settled into my chest. Not because of Adrian. Not because of the impossible claims. Because the man I trusted most could not look me in the eye. Ryan, I said again. Answer me. His shoulders rose and fell with a slow breath. Claire, I was trying to protect you. The words landed like ice water. People always said they were protecting you right before revealing something terrible. Protect me from what? I asked. He hesitated. Adrian answered before he could. From the truth. My hands tightened around the envelope. Every instinct told me to run. To leave the church. To escape all of it. But I needed answers more than I needed comfort. Ryan finally met my eyes. The clinic contacted me months ago. My stomach dropped. Months? He nodded. There were irregularities in some patient records. I felt the room spin slightly. Why was I never told? Because they believed they could fix it quietly. Fix what? My voice cracked. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then Adrian stepped closer, careful not to invade my space. Someone altered records inside the clinic, he said calmly. Several investigations are underway. I looked between them. And what does that have to do with me? Adrian's expression hardened. Everything. The church remained silent. Guests who had arrived expecting vows now sat frozen in confusion. My father looked ready to intervene. My mother was quietly crying. Emily stood near the front row, her hands clasped tightly together. Ryan rubbed a hand across his face. He suddenly looked exhausted. Older somehow. I thought it was over, he admitted. I thought the clinic corrected the mistake. What mistake? I demanded. Adrian reached into the envelope and removed a single page. This one. My eyes fell to the document. Most of it was medical terminology I barely understood. Laboratory references. Identification numbers. Authorization codes. Then one sentence caught my attention. Patient material mismatch identified during internal audit. My pulse accelerated. What does that mean? Adrian answered carefully. It means someone inside that facility changed information that should never have been changed. Are you saying my pregnancy is connected to that? Adrian nodded once. The church seemed to disappear around me. I could hear only my own heartbeat. Ryan stepped forward immediately. Claire, listen to me. I never wanted you hurt. I thought if we got married and moved forward, none of this would matter. I stared at him in disbelief. You knew something was wrong and said nothing? He opened his mouth, but no words came out. That silence told me everything. Adrian glanced toward the church entrance. For the first time since arriving, genuine concern appeared in his eyes. We do not have much time. The statement sent another chill through me. What does that mean? I asked. Adrian looked directly at me. It means there are people who know the audit exposed the truth. And if they realize you have these documents, your wedding is no longer the biggest problem you have today. The next few minutes passed in a blur. Guests whispered among themselves. The officiant quietly stepped away from the altar. My father moved toward me, but I barely noticed. My attention remained fixed on Ryan and Adrian. One man had hidden the truth. The other had arrived carrying pieces of it. I did not know which one frightened me more. Explain. Everything, I said. My voice sounded stronger than I felt. Adrian nodded once. Not here. Then where? I asked. Somewhere private. Ryan immediately stepped forward. Absolutely not. The speed of his response caught my attention. Adrian noticed it too. You seem very concerned about where Claire hears the truth. Ryan's jaw tightened. I am concerned because she has been through enough today. Then perhaps you should have told her months ago. The words landed with brutal precision. Ryan looked away again. I hated how much that hurt. Across the church, thunder rolled in the distance. Rain tapped softly against the stained glass windows. The storm that had threatened the city all morning had finally arrived. Somehow it felt fitting. My wedding day had become a storm of its own. I looked down at the documents in my hands. Names, dates, medical references. Every page raised more questions than answers. Then another detail caught my eye. One of the records listed a meeting between clinic administrators and outside legal representatives. A name appeared beside the authorization line. Bennett Holdings. Ryan's family company. My stomach dropped. Why is your company connected to this? I asked quietly. Ryan froze. For a moment, genuine panic flashed across his face. Not guilt. Not embarrassment. Fear. Claire. Why? He ran a hand through his hair. My father invested in the clinic years ago. The church seemed to grow even quieter. Invested? I repeated. Yes. And you forgot to mention that? He opened his mouth but could not answer. Adrian's expression darkened. The clinic was not just an investment. Ryan shot him a warning look. Adrian ignored it completely. Several board members reported unusual transactions months ago. Records disappeared. Internal files were altered. Employees resigned unexpectedly. My pulse quickened. Are you saying someone inside the company changed patient information intentionally? Adrian looked directly at me. That is exactly what I am saying. My knees suddenly felt weak. Emily hurried to my side and gently touched my arm. Claire, maybe you should sit down. I nodded absent-mindedly. Everything felt unreal. The flowers. The guests. The wedding dress. It all belonged to someone else's life now. Ryan moved closer. His voice softened. Claire, please believe me. I never wanted any of this. For the first time all day, I believed he was telling the truth. But that did not make it better. Sometimes people could hurt you without meaning to. Sometimes silence caused more damage than lies. A vibration interrupted the moment. My phone, still hidden inside my bouquet. With trembling fingers, I pulled it free. Another unknown message had arrived. My breath caught as I read it. The sender was clearly watching everything unfold. The message contained only one sentence. If Claire leaves the church with Adrian Blackwell, she will learn who ordered the records to be changed. My eyes remained fixed on the phone screen. The message felt heavier than the wedding ring, still resting in Ryan's pocket. If Claire leaves the church with Adrian Blackwell, she will learn who ordered the records to be changed. I read it twice before looking up. Neither Ryan nor Adrian had seen the message yet. For a brief moment, I considered deleting it. Pretending none of this was happening. Walking out a side door. Driving somewhere far away until the entire day became a distant memory. But deep down I already knew that was impossible. Too many questions had been opened. Too many pieces no longer fit together. Claire, Emily whispered. What is it? I handed her the phone. Her eyes widened immediately. Who keeps sending these? I do not know. Adrian noticed our expressions. Another message? I nodded cautiously. Someone wants me to leave with you. A strange look crossed his face. Not satisfaction. Concern. That means they are watching. Ryan immediately stepped closer. Then you should not go anywhere with him. Adrian turned toward him. You seem very invested in keeping her here. I am invested in protecting my fiancé. The word fiancé sounded wrong now. Like a title belonging to someone else. Someone from a different life. I looked at Ryan. Really looked at him. The confident man I had planned to marry was gone. In his place stood someone exhausted from carrying secrets. Tell me something honestly, I said. Did you know about Adrian before today? Ryan hesitated. The answer arrived before he spoke. Yes. The admission hit me harder than I expected. For how long? Several months. A sharp ache settled in my chest. Several months. He nodded slowly. The investigation connected certain records to him. I was told it would disappear. I thought it had. You thought? My voice rose despite myself. You thought my medical records were being investigated and never told me? Guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Nobody wanted to leave. Everyone wanted answers. Unfortunately, so did I. Ryan lowered his eyes. I was afraid. Of what? Losing you. The honesty in his voice almost broke my heart. Almost. But fear was not an excuse. Not anymore. Adrian remained silent. Watching. Waiting. For the first time since arriving, he seemed less like an intruder and more like someone carrying information he wished he never had to deliver. Thunder rolled again outside. The stained glass windows flashed with distant lightning. The storm was getting closer. My father finally approached. "Claire," he said gently, "you do not owe anyone a decision right now." I wanted to believe that. But every instinct screamed otherwise. Whoever was sending the messages clearly expected something to happen next. And somehow they seemed to know more than anyone standing in the church. I took a slow breath and looked directly at Adrian. "If I leave with you, what exactly will I learn?" Adrian held my gaze for several seconds before answering. "You will learn why your name appeared in those records." He paused. "And why someone spent months making sure you never discovered the truth." Then his phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. For the first time all day, genuine shock appeared in his eyes. The entire church seemed to notice the change in Adrian's expression. It lasted only a second, but it was enough. Whatever appeared on his phone had shaken him. That realization unsettled me more than anything else that day. Until now, Adrian Blackwell had seemed completely in control. Now he looked like a man who had just discovered a piece of information he never expected to see. "What is it?" I asked. Adrian did not answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the screen. Then he slowly looked up at me. "There is something you need to know." A chill ran down my spine. Ryan stepped forward at once. "Do not listen to him." Adrian ignored him. "The person sending those messages is not trying to help you." My grip tightened around the bouquet. "How do you know that?" He turned the phone toward me. On the screen was a message from one of his investigators. A name appeared beneath a photograph. The image showed a woman leaving an office building 6 months earlier. Blonde hair. Gray coat. Familiar face. My breath caught. "That is impossible," I whispered. Emily leaned closer and immediately gasped. "Claire." I could barely hear her. Because I recognized the woman too. Everyone in my family did. She had attended holiday dinners, birthday parties, graduation celebrations. She was not a stranger. She was my cousin, Natalie. The church seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "No." The word escaped before I could stop it. "No, that cannot be right." Adrian's voice softened slightly. "I wish it were not." My thoughts spiraled. Natalie had always been supportive. She had helped me shop for wedding decorations. She had cried when I announced my pregnancy. She had spent years acting like a sister. None of it made sense. Why would she be involved? I asked. Adrian slipped the phone back into his pocket. "That is what we have been trying to learn." Ryan suddenly looked pale. Paler than before. I noticed it immediately. So did Adrian. "You recognize the name," Adrian said quietly. Ryan looked away. My heart dropped. "Ryan." He did not answer. "Ryan." This time my voice echoed through the church. Finally he spoke. "Natalie worked with the clinic." Silence followed. Complete silence. Every guest stared at him. My parents looked stunned. Emily covered her mouth. I felt something inside me crack. Not because of the revelation itself. Because everyone seemed to know pieces of this story except me. "How long?" I asked. Ryan closed his eyes briefly. "Almost a year." A year. The number hit like a physical weight. "You knew she worked there and never told me?" It did not seem important at the time. Nothing seems important to you until it explodes. My voice trembled. Thunder rattled the windows again. Outside, rain poured harder across the city. Inside, another storm was unfolding. Adrian watched me carefully before speaking. "There is one more thing." I almost laughed at that. Every answer seemed to create 3 new questions. "What now?" Adrian hesitated for the first time since entering the church. Then he said the words that changed everything. Natalie was not the person who ordered the records to be altered. She was following instructions from someone much closer to you. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Someone closer to me. The words echoed through my mind while dozens of possibilities crashed into one another. My parents stood only a few feet away. Emily was beside me. Ryan was directly in front of me. Suddenly, every familiar face felt unfamiliar. Every relationship felt uncertain. Who? I asked. My voice barely existed. Adrian did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward Ryan. That single glance was enough to make my stomach twist. Ryan noticed it too. "Do not do this," he said quietly. Adrian remained calm. "Then tell her yourself." The church fell silent again. I stared at Ryan. Waiting. Hoping. Desperately hoping. "Tell me what?" I whispered. Ryan rubbed his forehead and closed his eyes. He looked like a man carrying a weight that had finally become impossible to hold. "Claire, none of this started because of you." My heart sank. It was not an answer. It was the beginning of a confession. "Then why did it start?" I asked. Rain hammered against the windows now. The storm outside had fully arrived. Ryan looked around the church before returning his gaze to me. "A year ago, my father became involved in a business dispute." Adrian's expression hardened slightly. "Call it what it was." Ryan ignored him. "Certain people wanted access to information. Influence. Control." "Control over what?" I asked. Ryan hesitated. Adrian answered. "My family's estate." The room seemed to tilt again. "Your family estate?" I repeated. Adrian nodded. "Several years ago, legal protections were created regarding inheritance and succession. Those protections made certain assets impossible to access without specific conditions being met." I stared at him. "I do not understand." "Neither did I at first," Ryan admitted. "But then people began looking for ways around those protections." Emily frowned. "What does that have to do with Claire?" Nobody answered immediately. That terrified me. Because suddenly everyone seemed to know where the conversation was heading except me. Then Adrian reached into his jacket and removed a second document. Unlike the others, this one looked older. Official. Legal. He handed it to me carefully. My eyes moved across the page. Most of the language was complex legal terminology. Then I saw a date. 26 years ago. Another date. 25 years ago. Then a name. My mother's name. My hands started shaking. "What is this?" I whispered. My mother looked just as confused as I felt. Adrian's voice became unusually gentle. "The investigation uncovered archived records connected to your family." My pulse raced. "What kind of records?" Adrian held my gaze. "Records proving your family crossed paths with mine long before you were born." The church disappeared around me. The guests. The wedding. The flowers. None of it mattered anymore. Because one sentence on that page had captured all my attention. It described a charitable medical program funded decades ago by the Blackwell family. And listed among its participants was a young woman named Sarah Whitman. My mother. Slowly, I looked up from the document. My mother looked equally stunned. Then Adrian spoke the words that changed everything once again. "Claire, this story did not begin with your pregnancy. It began before your parents ever met." The world became strangely quiet after that. Not because the church was silent. People were still whispering. Rain was still falling against the stained glass windows. Somewhere in the distance, thunder still rolled across the Boston skyline. But inside me, everything slowed. I looked at my mother. She looked back at me with the same confusion I felt. "Mom?" I whispered. "Do you know anything about this?" Sarah Whitman shook her head immediately. Tears filled her eyes. "No. I swear I do not." Adrian nodded as if he had expected that answer. "The records were sealed. Most of the people involved are gone now." He stepped closer and carefully placed another document in my hands. This one contained the final pieces. Years ago, before either of us were born, Adrian's grandfather had funded a medical research and family assistance program. Hundreds of families participated, including my mother's. During the recent investigation, auditors discovered archived biological records connected to those programs. Those records should have remained forgotten. Instead, Someone inside the clinic found them. Someone realized that a rare biological match existed between two family lines that were never supposed to cross again. My eyes moved across the pages. Suddenly, everything made sense. The altered files, the secret meetings, the hidden investigations, the messages, the pregnancy. None of it had been random. A group of executives connected to the clinic had attempted to manipulate records for financial gain. They believed they could create leverage over powerful families by controlling information that did not belong to them. Natalie had followed instructions. Ryan's father had helped hide irregularities to protect investments. Ryan had discovered pieces of the truth and panicked. Everyone had made choices. Some selfish, some fearful, some simply wrong. I lowered the documents and looked at Ryan. His eyes were filled with regret. For a moment I saw the man I once planned to marry. Not evil, not cruel, just weak when honesty mattered most. "You should have told me," I said softly. He nodded. Tears appeared in his eyes. I know. There was nothing left to add. Some apologies arrived too late. I turned toward Adrian. "And you?" He met my gaze. "I came because I believed you deserved the truth before anyone else decided your future for you. For the first time all day, I believed someone completely. Not because he had all the answers, but because he was the only person who had not asked me to stay blind." The rain outside finally began to soften. The storm was moving on. My father stepped beside me and gently squeezed my shoulder. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I looked around the church. The flowers, the guests, the unfinished ceremony. Then I looked down at the white dress I had chosen for a future that no longer existed. And, surprisingly, I smiled. Not because I was happy, because I was finally free to choose. I removed the veil and placed it carefully on a nearby chair. "I am not getting married today," I said. The words felt lighter than I expected. No one argued. No one protested. Even Ryan understood. Adrian offered his hand. Not as a demand. Not as a promise. Simply as a choice. After a long moment, I accepted it. Together we walked down the aisle that had been prepared for a wedding, but became something else entirely. A beginning. Months later, the investigations ended. The people responsible faced consequences through the law. My family healed. Ryan rebuilt his life honestly. Natalie finally told the truth. And Adrian and I spent a long time learning who we were beyond headlines, secrets, and fear. The future arrived slowly. One ordinary day at a time. Looking back now, I sometimes think about that morning. The bells. The storm. The messages. The impossible accusation that stopped a wedding. It felt like the end of my world. In reality, it was the first day I stopped living inside someone else's story and started writing my own.